Welcome to Python Lesson 16. In this lesson, we're going to explore lists. Lists are variables. They allow us to store information, but the difference is that you can store multiple pieces of information. So let's get to it. So in Python, again, as I mentioned in the intro, a list is a variable. So you would start pretty much the same way. So I'm going to do, let's just do a list of numbers. Okay, so we will use the square bracket as a way of informing Python that we're going to create a list. And now we can simply put a bunch of numbers. Let's do 1, 5, 3, and 2. And you can see that each piece of information is separated by a comma. And now let's simply print numbers out. And you'll see that it is a variable, but what we're going to get is all the information back. And notice it also is in the square brackets. So this is cool, because the other way you would have to do this is to actually create individual variables such as number 1 is equal to 1, number 2 is equal to 5, number 3 is equal to 6, and so on. So again, this is just 5 pieces of information. Imagine if you had 3,000 pieces of information. Obviously, you don't want to create all those variables. So a list lets you get all that information into one variable. But now let's go through and, let's ask, how can we get a piece of information out of a list? So we're going to put the square brackets again. So now we're going to put it right after the name of the variable. This lets us specify a position. So let's go in here and let's put 1. And actually, for the sake of, so there's no confusion, I'm going to change the first number to 9, so that way there's no association with this and the actual values. And let's see what prints out. So you can see here, numbers 1 doesn't print out the first value, prints out the second value. Let's do another one. Let's do numbers 2. You can see that numbers 2 prints out the third value, not the second one. So hopefully you're able to kind of deduce that the first position in a list must be 0. And that is correct. So each value in a list has a position, where this is position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Right. So that's very important for you to remember, that the first position in a list is position 0. So let's say we wanted to print out this and possibly the last value in our list. So we can see here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But remember, if we start with 0, this becomes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, students sometimes have a problem differentiating. We have 5 values. Let's not mistake that. We have 5 values, but the position of the last value is position 4. So let's see that. So you can see here we get the 9 and we get the 2. So the first position in a list is 0. The last position in the list is 1 less than how many things you have. Okay. So if we wanted to print out each thing individually, we could go through and do something like this, which I would not advise, because again, I'm going to use back the analogy. What if you had 3,000 things? That would not work. So we could do 1, 2, 3, and let's do the last one of 4, and we get it. But again, this is not efficient. Hopefully you can see that because we're starting at 0 and going all the way to something that's the last number, means we can use a for loop. So let me transform this to use the for loop. So let's say I in range 5, because we got 5 items. And now let's go ahead and delete these. Let's tab this in. And instead of 0, because again, some students will do this. Let me show you what this does. Again, it does exactly what the code says it's going to do. It's going to repeat this code 5 times. So it simply displays the first value, the one at position 0, 5 times. What we want to do is to put the value of I here. Now I'm going to do something hopefully that will clarify the difference between I and numbers I. So I, nothing special here, starts at 0, goes all the way to 4. But now if you substitute that value in with numbers I, we now get each of the numbers in the array. So that is, I would say 99% of the time when you work with a list, you will work with a for loop and you will use this type of syntax. All right. So let me run another example across you. So let's say we wanted to ask the user for a bunch of words. So we don't know what words they are, but we do know we want to somehow store them in an array, in a list. If you hear me say the word array, it's because in other languages, that's what they're called. But in Python, they're called list. So this is how you create an empty list, something that we can then populate. So let's go through and let's ask the user for, let's say 3 words. We'll keep it simple. Obviously, we can increase it by more. And let's comment this out. I don't want to see that. So because I want to ask the user for a word, that means we need some input. So let's say enter word. Put a little space here. So now we got the word from the user. We want to add it to our words list. So a list has a function, a command that lets us append to the list. And what do we want to append? Well, we want to append the word. So I'm going to prove this to you in that I'm going to print out words before we run the for loop, and I'll print out words after we run the for loop. And let's see what we get inside the list. All right, so here we go. You can see the list is empty. Let's enter our first word. The cat ran. And this is the list after we ran the for loop. So you can see the words the, cat, and ran are in it because we've appended it to the list. Let's go through and let's practice again. Let's actually display the words individually. So we'll say for I in range 3. And let's do a little string interpolation. Just kind of practice that. Actually, we'll do like word at position I is numbers I. Again, just this review of string interpolation. Oh, because it's not numbers, it's words. I was still working with the other one. So let's go ahead and comment this one out too. So a slightly different example in that we are doing string interpolation, but it's still the idea of using the list with the I. Again, you got to get used to this. Whenever you work with lists, 99% of the time, you're going to use something like this as part of your solution. So let's go run it. I am hungry. And there you go. So the word at position 0 is I am, and then hungry. So again, this is just reinforcing the fact that these words in the list have a position. Okay. So let's go back to our presentation. And let's review. So lists are variables that can store multiple pieces of information. And by using something called the index, that's what the position is. It's an index, a position in the list. We're able to access all the information. We can add things to the list when we first create the list, when we use the square brackets, or we can use the command append, that's part of a list, to append to the list. So hopefully the activity will reinforce this, and good luck.